This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. There is something out there that can help you with mobility, feel better. And today, a different aspect we haven't touched upon with this technique, depression and anxiety. A lot of times we gravitate toward medication, and when that's needed, that's the route to go. Is it always, though? There is something that I've discovered through this gentleman today. In the past, I didn't even know it existed. It's called the Alexander technique, and depression and anxiety is one of those things that it can help you out with. He is a neuro, muscular, and rehab specialist, and it's great to have him back with us. Travis Chastain is on the program. How you doing today?
Steve, I'm great. Thank you for having me again. This is exciting.
For me as well, because I had no idea that this technique developed 150 years ago can help with depression and anxiety. Now, when we say help with, how do we mean? What can it do for somebody that's going through some of those challenges?
Yeah, well, certainly if you're having anxiety and depression, it's certainly not a replacement, let's say, for, a therapist or whatnot. But what it is what's interesting is that the Alexander technique, it works with our habits of tension, right? And one of the things that can drive habits of tension, obviously, is if we're in pain, if we're suffering from a trauma, for example. What we can learn how to do with the Alexander technique is to just stop and pause from the reacting to the feeling. All right, stop and pause from reacting to the feeling. It is possible, and the Alexander technique teaches us how to do this. It's possible to experience a feeling, for example, without being neck deep in the feeling of it, right? And instead get in connection with, well, I'm feeling this anger, perhaps. I'm feeling this anxiety. I'm feeling whatever it is, right? But what's behind that? What am I also noticing in my body? What kind of tensions are showing themselves in my body? What kind of tensions are showing themselves in my thoracic spine, for example? Right. So, when we start to lengthen and widen, when we start to release those tensions, when we start to get in connection to those and not worrying so much about the feeling and starting to think our way out of trouble. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh man, I'm anxious. I'm angry. I'm hurt by this or that, or whatever it is, the things that happen in the trials and tribulations of life, right? But then I can go do some Alexander technique and pause for a moment and just get in connection. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm having these troubles. There's some existential reasons why, probably. I had something happen today that wasn't fun. But let me get in connection with what that's doing in my body right now. And every time I do that, every time that I'm able to let go of those things, I feel better. It doesn't necessarily change the external circumstances, right? But it certainly changed my internal circumstances. And then because it changed my internal circumstances in my body and my posture and my connectivity, well, then that changes how I can look at that circumstance, right? And I think that's probably why, it helps people with Parkinson's disease. That's where we have the testing on people who have Parkinson's disease, who study the Alexander technique. They all say it does help them with their anxiety and depression. Probably in part for that reason, because it teaches you to detach from what's going on a little bit, right? And get in connection to that postural tone. Release that postural tone, be a little bit more powerful.
Well, it seems like
more powerful.
If you have anxiety, we'll pick that one.
Yeah.
We're talking about depression and anxiety. Let's pick anxiety. When a situation presents, let's say you have a flight coming up, you have a little bit of fear of flying, you get anxious. As you said, what invariably happens at that moment? You're feeling the anxiety, you're feeling it probably maybe in your stomach, in your head, but you're holding, as you say, the tension. You feel it. You're tensing up. Like, I can't get on that plane. I'll wait till everybody else gets on. I hope I'm the last one on then. Maybe that'll make it better. But you've tensed up. So with the Alexander technique, are you saying, Travis, that using that technique releases the tension,
Mhm.
one of the symptoms, whereby making you feel better.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And you can't really disassociate between a feeling and attention. They're always going to be following one another in
Sure.
some degree or form or fashion, right? So, for example, what happens when we feel tight or anxious around something like flying? What do we try to feel instead of that? We try to fight those feelings, right? We try to embrace against them. At least I do. But something interesting happens when you give yourself permission to not push against the feeling. Just allow yourself to experience the feeling while thinking of your free neck. The feeling tends to lose its pull on us for some mysterious reason, right? But if you can give yourself that permission to feel what you need to feel without pushing against that what you need to feel, then you can start working on what's behind those feelings.
Hmm.
Where's the tensions in the body, and those things I can work with. The feeling will come, the feeling might go, the feeling might get more intense, but I have an opportunity to observe it, to listen to it, to notice it, and then to think about my free neck instead
Hmm.
while I feel what I feel. I can feel anxious and think of my free neck while I feel anxious. And then for some reason, that takes the edge off because you're not fighting anymore. You're not pushing anymore. You're not trying to control anymore.
And the way the technique works, I'm at the airport. I'm feeling it starting. Got to get on that flight. Got to get on that plane. Is it something that you would do in that moment? And or would it be something that you do leading up to it? And let's say it's in that moment. Now you have another situation that comes up later on. Is it going to be the same thing? Are you going to work on use the technique at that moment to feel better?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right. Ideally, what we're doing is we're working with the technique always.
Hmm.
Because the technique always about working on our responses to stimuli. There's a stimuli to get out of the chair. Let's think of our free neck first before we get out of that chair. And it makes us get out of the chair easier. There's this stimuli with this circumstance at work. Oh man, I'm going to have this difficult conversation with somebody. Big stimuli. Right? I can think about my free neck before I give that response, and I can listen to myself. And then by listening to myself, I can listen to what they're saying and perhaps even listen to what they're saying behind what they're saying. Right? But you have the opportunity with the Alexander technique. Again, it's not conditioned upon anything. You can practice the technique now. You can practice the technique in any circumstance that you're doing. Like we said last one, I can practice the Alexander technique when I'm waiting in line for my cup of coffee. I can practice the Alexander technique right now when we're having this discussion. I can practice the Alexander technique when that plane starts to just suddenly dip. Right? I can catch the fall, so to speak, because I'm listening. I'm listening to how I'm thinking, but I'm also listening to how my body's responding to the stimuli around. And do I have a direct control over what this person says? Do I have a direct control over what that airplane is going to do? Do I even have direct control over how I'm going to feel in this moment? No, I don't. But what I do have a direct control over is how I'm going to respond to the stimuli that I'm presented with. And I have the opportunity in relationship to the stimuli I'm presented with to think in a particular way that's going to empower my coordination in response to it. And by empowering my coordination, I can feel a little bit better because I'm empowered.
And would you say that, and I'm trying to think of all of these scenarios, but mostly everything that challenges us, anxiety, depression, um, whatever's holding us back from doing certain things, there's a reason. There's always a reason. It always comes with what you said from the beginning, holding tension. We're holding the tension somewhere. It's always going to be connected to something that challenges us. I'm seeing it as yes. I'm trying to think if there's a situation where you wouldn't be. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. It's always, we tense up, whether it's in our stomach, whether it's in our neck, wherever it might be.
Well, yeah, like if we get in the habit, for example, of holding on to a needed outcome, for example. We need to get an outcome in this particular moment. I need to get an outcome in this particular conversation, right? Well, what happens if I don't get that outcome, Steve? See,
You,
I've attached my well-being to the getting or not getting of that external thing.
well, okay. Would it be fair enough to say you didn't get an expected outcome? There's going to be maybe some frustration. Doesn't matter what it is, could
Sure.
be anything. What comes along with that frustration?
Yeah, you're doing it, right? You're
Right?
holding your
Like,
breath,
here,
right?
I've got,
There's
I've got,
that.
I've got one for you in real time. Here we go.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
it's quarterly tax day. I put two envelopes at the door of this office,
Right,
and one for the state, one for federal. Got to get
right,
them paid today. Deadline is today. Mail
right,
carrier delivers mail and only takes one envelope. I'm like, I don't get
That's
angry. I'm just like
irritating.
frustrated. Like, so I have to get in the car and drive to the post office because it's got to get postmarked by
Right.
today. But I fell for a moment. It's like, really?
Yeah, and you can feel your blood pressure rising, right? You can feel the stomach kind of,
It's
whatever,
like
right?
it's one more layer of things to do today where
Yeah,
should have been. Why would you take one and not the other one? They're right next to each other. If you took one, you'd realize there's another one behind it. I don't
yeah,
understand. But,
yeah.
if you run hot, you might be like, and you'd feel it. You'd be holding tension.
Oh,
You'd be
yeah.
holding tension.
And then, imagine like, have you ever had a day like you had something like that, right? But let's say a couple minutes before that, you were washing the dishes or something like that, right? And
Mm,
the thing slipped out of my hand. I broke the dish, right? And
right.
then maybe something else happened, and then something, we've had days once in a while that compound and compound and compound.
Sure.
You got to ask yourself, well, man, I reacted here, and then that caused a little tightening and disempowering, and then I
Mhm.
reacted here, that caused a little tightening and disempowering, right? And that just keeps compounding itself, right? It can ruin your whole day. It was one
Yeah.
moment. It was one moment, right? But it could ruin your whole day. We can
Absolutely.
hold on to that. We can hold on to that cycle physically for the whole rest of the day if we wanted to.
I know people that do, and I don't judge anybody.
Right.
They need to call you, but I was just texting with somebody who got their car fixed by a family friend who owns a garage, and it was okay for a day or two, and then it was
Mm.
acting up again. They went back and he said, "Well, you got to take it to your dealer." She calls the dealer, they can't get her in for a month and they have no loaner cars. So she's like, "What?" she,
Well, man,
she she holds
I'm
on.
feeling my neck tightening just hearing that scenario. I mean, that's a tough scenario, Steve.
Right, right?
But yeah, I mean, life does that to us, right? It
Sure.
throws us into these things, right? It's not a peaches and cream kind of scenario all the time. We'd like it to be, but it's never going to be that way, right?
Can I ask a question and your
Yeah,
opinion on that? Um,
yeah.
this is a slight digression, but why does life continue to throw things at us? Some of us might ride in the victim mentality. Why me? Why me? Others like, why is it? And then others say, well, you know what? There's a lesson there. I need to learn that lesson. That's why that presented itself to me. Or there's others that say, um, no, you know what? That happened because you manifested it. You were thinking it, and then another thing, and then another thing. You thought your day was going to be bad in the beginning, and then you thought about it, and then it just became that way. What's your overall thought on that?
Oh my goodness, you opened up a bag of worms
I
there,
sure
Steve.
did, didn't I?
Jeez.
What's your thought?
Well, there's no way of avoiding this, Steve. You're going to embody your beliefs.
For sure.
You're going to
Yep.
act those out in how you walk, how you talk, right? If we have a
Mm,
belief that we're unworthy, we're going to present that unworthiness,
agreed.
right? You're going to present yourself, talk about this thing. You're probably not going to give me the promotion. Well, whatever it is, right? You're going to present that. Now, those things can be complicated. God knows why. Sometimes we get into those patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could have been something that happened to us when we were like 2 months old, for all we know. Happened to us in a dream when we were 8 years old. Only God knows. Seriously, right? But um, I'll say this: how the Alexander technique has helped me with my own embodied lies. Let's say I'm not valuable, I'm not worthy. You pick it, right? We
Well,
all
we
have
all,
them,
but by the way, I've done lots of podcasts with therapists, coaches,
right?
etc. Everybody says the same thing. We all have it. We
Oh,
all,
we
to some degree.
all.
Yeah,
There's not one human being that's been born.
totally. Well, actually,
Well,
yes.
except for Blessed Mother. She's probably the only one.
But
Yeah.
when we're born, we are perfect. We don't have this. No, these things didn't present themselves until life went on. Now you're one. Now you two. Now you three. And then you interpret certain things. That's the way life is supposed to be, but maybe it's not. But that's what you got as a kid, and then that's kind of the setup for later in life and rides in your subconscious. Many believe, but yeah, we all have it. Not good enough in some degree.
Oh yeah, we get pushed around, something happens to us. Perhaps we did something to somebody else, right? Whatever it is. We're all kind of a conglomeration of all of the above,
Mm,
right? We all have them in all degrees in some way, right? And you know, how the Alexander technique has helped me, perhaps, well, not perhaps, definitely, with these embodied lies is they do show up in how you're holding your body. They do show up in the postural network. They do.
mm, mm.
And a lot of the times I'll be working with the technique. I don't have an agenda about letting go of a unprocessed hurt, Steve. I don't ever go into the Alexander technique. Hey, let's work on my unworthiness today.
Right.
But I'll be getting up and out of the chair. Some things will be changing in how I'm breathing. I'll feel a little release of tension in the inside of my left rib cage, for example, and then suddenly I'll feel a need to cry, perhaps. And
Mm,
it's happened to me in the past many a time. And after what I call it is that there's this opportunity where the ghosts get released out of the muscle tissue. And I've
mm,
literally experienced that in my life many a time.
mm.
And then there's an opportunity, Steve. Those things have a story to say, in which we can either choose to listen, in which case we have the opportunity to kind of let that tension out, or we can choose to ignore it and it'll go back in. I've done both.
Well, does this go back to what I've often heard that the body doesn't forget? So
Uh,
all those experiences that you've had since you were a kid,
yeah,
it's in your DNA. It's in the
very true.
cellular level in your body.
Yeah.
It has not forgotten. Maybe you have, subconscious probably hasn't, but in general, you don't even realize it. That something you dealt with 20 years ago, you may be still carrying it in terms of tension within your body, right?
Well, I don't know if any human being's ever done with this process, Steve. There's always another layer of something to unpeel, perhaps. I really do believe that. The integration process is a beautiful and rewarding one, but it's a never-ending one. It really is. It's a beautiful and rewarding one.
Mm.
But you're never gonna wake up one day and yeah, I've completely and totally resolved all my BS.
That's called life.
You're just really not.
Yeah.
There's always another layer of growth, my friend, right? There's always another layer of peace. There's always another mountain to climb,
Mm.
right? There's always another mountain to climb. And um, you know, how the technique has helped me is it's given me permission to experience these things without judging these things, right? To give some compassion to myself, to let myself do what we never let ourselves do as men, right? Even in private. Well, yeah, this horrible thing happened to me when I was 3 years old. Or I did this horrible thing when I was 7 years. Well, you know, it's somewhere here in my body. Can
Yep.
I? We don't ever give ourselves the opportunity just to tell the truth about that and how it's in our body, what it feels like, what we notice about it. We don't ever give ourselves any compassion about it. We don't ever give ourselves any forgiveness over it. We don't ever give ourselves any love around it.
We don't
Or
even
maybe,
realize that we're feeling it because
yeah,
we're busy or we let other things get in the way to block maybe the pain.
or maybe we're just not ready to deal with it, right?
And then there's
Those
that.
things happen because we have, you know, it takes courage, Steve. I mean, it definitely does for all of us to face the things in an existential world that are causing us trouble. It takes courage.
Would you
Now,
say,
on the other side of that fire is a beauty. It's a joy, right? And I'm not even strictly speaking about the Alexander technique at this point. I'm talking about how the Alexander technique process has led me to this process, right? Um, but behind it, there is always a joy, but there is a fire to walk through, so to speak. There's no doubt.
would you say that this technique has and can really get you in touch with you?
Mm.
That's
That's its
really what's going on here.
that's what it does. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. You know, alignment, integration, these words that we use, that the Alexander technique embodies in some way. Alignment, integration, the process by which we align, right? Um, that's a psychophysical act which encompasses the mind, the body, the emotions, the senses, the sensual, the the soul, right? All of those things are encompassed there. Um, while the technique is simply a means whereby to improve your coordination, it's going to help you with all of these things.
Mm.
That's happened in my life, for to be sure.
Just about out of time, but I want to confirm something. You talked about a major car accident
Yeah.
way back when we got together.
Yes.
Was that the event that impeded your ability to play classical guitar?
It was the vent that broke this. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, to be sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you were
Yeah.
having challenges with guitar. Just kind of maybe kind of leading up to it, and then bam, then you have that accident, and then now that was a game changer. We have now serious challenges.
Yeah.
Physical. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Like I think we talked about in the past, Steve, we learned how to carry excess pretty early in our lives, most of us do, for a number of reasons. And then they can compound themselves over time. The
Yep.
good news is all you have to do is think. Don't try to feel your way out of trouble. That's just a dead end. It never leads you anywhere. But you can think and you can experience your emotions, but you can be with your thinking while you experience your emotions. And then that updates your sense experience. And that's the beautiful thing that the Alexander technique teaches. You can't trust your sense experience when it gets out of whack. You just can't. So how do you change? Well, you have to think in a way that updates your sense experience.
Mm.
And the Alexander technique teaches you a way of thinking that updates your sense experience. It gives you a different lens, so to speak, around whatever trouble you're facing, whether it's a physical trouble, an emotional trouble, whatever it is. You can think in a way that updates your sense experience, which affords you the space for perhaps a different perspective, a different lens on the situation. That
S-
word space, so important.
Yeah. Well, holding space is a term.
Mm,
How about holding space for yourself and thinking your way through those feelings, those emotions, that anxiety, that depression. Um, this is something we said been around 150 years. FM Alexander, the man that developed this technique, because he had some challenges, as you described. He was a vocalist. and then he couldn't sing. He couldn't perform. He couldn't talk on a stage. And this helped him through it. Um, Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I've
Steve.
done a lot of metaphysical podcasts. I've never heard of this until you came on board. And now that we're talking, it's even more clear why it's so important and what we're doing. And certainly even right back to the, feelings of not being adequate and uh, all of that. We're holding on to it. We're holding on to it. We don't need to. We don't need to, but we don't know what to do. This is it.
You can think in a way that improves your coordination, and by improving your coordination, you can change your life for the better.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the beauty is this can be done virtually. You can walk somebody through it and help them with it. And as you said, you could practice this without anybody even knowing when a situation presents in the face of adversity. You could be doing
Practicing it right now, Steve. You can practice it right now with me.
it.
There doesn't have to be a minute of your day, my friend.
Amazing.
And there shouldn't be a minute of your day that you're not considering your free neck.
You know what? I walk around with I think the tightest neck of anybody. I challenge. I don't know. I don't know. And it's not that I have a lot of tension or anything. I think pretty certain I feel it's stored from way back, way back. Not anything like recent. I think it's these, as we say, we hold on to tension. We don't even know we're doing it. Is that reasonable to think?
That is a fact. We don't know. Like if we knew, then we wouldn't. If we knew at a conscious level, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
Right? We just wouldn't. And again, the most unique, dare I say, even revolutionary thing that FM came across was, again, you can't feel your way out of a trouble like this, per se, because your sense experience is so tied to your habits' attention. Your feelings are so tied to your habits' attention. They just reinforce themselves constantly and continuously. But again, you can think while you feel.
Mm.
Right? It gives you that permission to detach and to not attach to all the BS that feelings try to present you with. It teaches you to inhibit, think while you feel, so that you don't get attached to the BS that feelings can give you. And they all do. They lie to us. That's just a fact. They do.
100%. Yeah, and anybody that thinks this is woo, it really isn't. Because when you think about it and you have some stress over something, I'm feeling it in my stomach. Whoa, whoa. You're thinking about it. Now you're thinking about your stomach. Now and now it's tensing up even more.
Right.
This
It's
is
a
not
vicious cycle.
Exactly. This isn't like some
spiral.
crazy, weird wooey kind of something. No, this is just getting us to realize what we're thinking and how to unthink it, if you will, or think in a different way to release the tension. How do we connect with you, Travis? What's the best way?
You can find me at www.bodymindbalanceco.com. Again, don't ever use the Alexander technique to replace a professional therapist if you need help that way. It's a tool and it's a complement. So I wanted to make sure I give that highlight.
Absolutely. There's many different tools. This one I never heard of until you.
Yeah.
And it all, honestly, truly, it all makes crystal clear sense. We all do what you're describing. We don't know how to undo it.
Until you know how to undo it.
Now there's a way. There's been a way. There's been a way. Thank you for today. Thank you for the clarity in all of this. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Steve. Awesome job.
Thanks. You too. We'll talk soon. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.